The 690 SMCR is a legend, but its engine, the LC4, is almost even more legendary. Today we're taking a look at why the 690 SMCR is so popular, what still makes its engine so special, where its fascination comes from. And we'll be talking to people who've been riding it for years. Today I welcome you to a slightly different kind of video here on 1000 PS TV, because we've tried something new. Together with KTM, we organized a Supermoto riding skills training day, where the 1000 PS crew and 5 lucky 1000 PS viewers got to enjoy a fantastic day. Under the guidance of Rudi Bauer and Jasmin Poppenreiter, we received plenty of riding tips to help us ride better, faster and above all safer. KTM brought along a 690 SMCR, and without a doubt this bike was the most popular one in the paddock. Everyone wanted to have a go on it. That's why today we want to take a closer look at where this fascination comes from the perspective of passion, technology and history. But before we dive into the history, we need to quickly talk about the current 690 SMC. 79 horsepower, 73 Newton meters of torque. Those are figures you really have to let sink in, all coming from a single cylinder engine. On top of that, in this 2026 version, we've got every bit of electronics you could possibly want. I won't go too deep into that, because No Pain has already done a test for you. But this is simply a bike you have to ride at least once. You have to experience it for yourself. And that's why I also want to find out what today's participants at our event think about the new 690 SMCR. So Mila, you know your 690 SMCR well on the road, but today you've ridden it here on the Supermoto track. What were your impressions?
Honestly, amazing. I had an extremely good time out there. Compared to the 690 I normally ride, it feels just as lively, but a lot more stable in the corners, and you can do anything with it. You can push it into the turn, lean it over. It just goes along with everything. It's really a brilliant bike, actually perfect for everything.
Martin, you've also been out there on the Supermoto track and it looked pretty spectacular as always. What were your impressions of the new 690 SMCR?
Well, my first impressions are really positive for a super tight course like the one we've got here. First gear corners at 30-40 kilometers per hour. Bikes like this are just made for it, but I do need to get into the swing of things a bit, because I'm not really used to these Supermotos. For me, they've always felt a bit like stilts on wheels.
Yeah, you could see that. You looked completely out of your comfort zone, right?
Yeah, and to really get it moving quickly, you've got to take the dynamics of this kind of bike into account. It's completely different from a super sport motorcycle. Even the feedback you get from the tires is totally different. So for me, it's really about building up a bit of a connection with the bike first. But for a small course like the one we've got here, these are proper fun machines.
Right next to me now is Manuel. You've got a 701 yourself, and today you've also ridden the new 690 SMCR. What were your first impressions of it?
Yeah, it's not bad at all. The quick shifter and blipper are really great, because on my 701 I don't have either, and it makes a real difference when riding. It shoots out of corners beautifully.
What year is your 701?
It's a 2016 model.
And does the new one make you want to upgrade?
Well, it makes me want to retrofit a quick shifter and the electronics, yes, but I still love that Euro 3 sound when you can properly hear something coming out of the exhaust.
No Pain, you rode the 690 SMCR for us for the first time. In short, what are your impressions of this supermoto?
I know the previous model quite well. I rode it for many months. With the new 690, the successor, I've only ridden it once in the morning, but it was really cool because all that talk about it having less torque, you don't feel that at all. In fact, I think in terms of engine performance, it might even ride better than the previous one. It rides just as well as the model from 3 or 4 years ago. And now it's got this new display, which I personally find really important. Finally, you can actually read and adjust things. And the electronics are just fantastic in my opinion. It's genuinely fun to ride, and I'm already looking forward to today when we might get to try out a few things, because thanks to the electronics, you've got that extra safety net.
Now next to me is McGregor, the Red Rocket, as we like to call you. So, what were your first impressions of the new 690 SMCR? We rode the old one back in Spain, but now it's the new model. What did you think?
To be honest, I haven't ridden it enough to really tell the difference between the old and the new one. I've ridden the LC4 engine more often in its enduro version, and the same thing you think there applies here as well. This single cylinder just pulls like crazy. You can tell, of course, that the Euro 5 Plus regulations haven't made things easy for it. If you remember the earlier generations, it feels a bit more restrained at low revs, but then from around 3000 or 3500 RPM, it's like someone flips a switch and it just takes off. That actually made the last exercise, drifting for example, a real challenge, because you're so much faster at the end of the main straight, and for drifting you want to brake as late as possible, then downshift, use the rear brake. You have to control the clutch carefully. There's a lot happening at once, and having the courage to do all that in the last 30 meters of the straight was definitely hardest on the 690, simply because it's got so much more punch and with it speed.
As modern as the SMCR may be today, its engine has a history that goes all the way back to the 1980s. Back then, KTM was already a major player in off-road racing. But with increasingly strict emission and noise regulations, the classic two-strokes came under pressure and KTM had to react. So they took the engine casing of the old 500cc two-stroke and developed, based on that, a liquid-cooled four-stroke engine, the liquid-cooled four-stroke, or simply LC4. This engine was also used in racing during the 1980s, but at the beginning of the 1990s, KTM was facing a fresh start. Under Stefan Pierer, the company began its comeback, and the LC4 played a key role in that. In 1992, with the help of Kiska Design, they transformed an enduro into the first street bike, the 620 Duke. In the years that followed, the LC4 became more powerful, more refined, more reliable, and at the same time its purpose shifted, away from racing towards road and fun bikes. KTM's off-road division, after all, faced competition from within the company itself with lighter XC engines and the whole adventure range. But the LC4 found its new home in the Duke, Enduro and SMC models. And especially in a supermoto, this powerful single cylinder still excites riders today. But aside from passion, the technology also plays a huge role, because building a supermoto around such a big single cylinder is no easy task. Only one other manufacturer from Italy still does that these days. Martin, what are the main challenges of developing such a large single-cylinder engine?
These days, you obviously have to deliver power. All manufacturers are putting out bikes with very high performance figures, and you simply can't afford to lag behind. So the challenge now is to get such high peak power out of a single cylinder engine, which fundamentally isn't designed for that. Normally, single cylinders are built to generate strong power from low revs. that makes things tricky when you're trying to combine that with high-end performance. You really have to choose the basic engine layout carefully, especially the bore-to-stroke ratio, so that you can actually reach higher revs in the first place. But that also makes the whole engine setup a bit sharper in character. That means you get more power at the top end, but you naturally start to lose some of that low-down power and torque that you normally associate with a single cylinder.
When it comes to emissions, especially with KTM's LC4 engine, that one has been declared dead more than once whenever a new, stricter emission standard came along. Considering that, do you still see a long-term future for engines like this, or is it just going to keep getting harder?
It's definitely becoming more difficult because with large single-cylinder displacements, and the single cylinder is already at its limit in that sense, emissions become increasingly tricky to manage. A large combustion chamber naturally brings more challenges compared to dividing that volume across several smaller cylinders. So that alone presents certain obstacles. However, the single cylinder is still fundamentally a very good concept, especially for lightweight bikes like Supermotos and similar machines, because by design it's extremely light. You can make it very compact, light and small. That's why I believe the single cylinder will continue to have its place and its justification in the future. Even though emissions regulations will make things harder, manufacturers will still find ways to comply, perhaps through more advanced exhaust after-treatment systems or stricter tuning compared to multi-cylinder engines of similar capacity. But the advantages that come from a single cylinder are not to be underestimated. Now, for certain motorcycle concepts, they're actually indispensable.
KTM has undoubtedly been through some tough times, but the world we live in today is very different from the one back in the 1980s. Yet one constant has remained and has evolved with the times: the LC4 single cylinder. The KTM 690 SMCR is the result of this long development, a modern classic in a way, proving that true fascination doesn't disappear, it evolves. And as long as KTM continues to build this engine and fit it into a motorcycle that people love, this legend will keep on rolling. And now it's your turn. What's your story with the LC4? Tell us down in the comments. We'd love to hear your experiences. Thanks for watching and see you next time.